Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are talking about Voice of Cards, Beasts of Burden. Of the three Voice of Cards games that I've played so far, this one isn't my favorite, but I think it has probably the best story and kind of the best mixture of being serious and being kind of funny at the same time. The story is actually pretty cool. You start off as a girl in an underground village, and it's being attacked by monsters. You're one of the only three people who can fight back, apparently, and you end up not being able to really do this, as the monsters kill everybody that you know in the village, and then you are eventually saved by some mysterious guy at the very beginning. You end up going to his village and you meet with like their little council there, and you find out that those are the people who sent the monsters to your village. You find this out after you've completed a task for them, and the boy kind of turns on the Senate and ends up killing them off. It's a really cool story, and I like it an awful lot so far. You also then after that you go on to a series of other things. So you meet other people, you learn more about just what the world is, because you're playing really like a fish out of water character. She has not experienced much of the world, so you're kind of learning more about this place through her eyes. It's pretty fascinating to go through, and I'm really digging it so far. This is a turn-based RPG that is heavily inspired by tabletop games. So you're doing a lot of dice rolls, which are shown on screen. You're using a bunch of different trading cards, which you obviously can see. It's kind of a cool hybrid between, a role-playing game and kind of like a tabletop, what do I want to say here? A trading card game. It's pretty fun, so think of something that's like a little bit more of an interactive version of Magic the Gathering or the Pokemon trading card game, and also combine it with Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing. It's a really cool combination, and I really like it, but this is where we come to like the one thing that I don't like about this installment in the Voice of Cards series. I'm not a huge fan of just the way they incorporated the spells and everything. So, taking a spin off of the name Beast of Burden, your character is kind of like a beast tamer or a summoner in some way, I think it's called. All of your like special attacks or healing spells or party buffs come from you collecting different cards from these beasts. So you beat an orc, or you beat a slime, or a centaur, or one of these weird winged turtles, and you get a chance to get a card from them, which represents their abilities. Some will increase your different party members' attacks. Some will increase their defense. Some of them, like this wasp card, will do damage to them in some way. I don't like this very much. I wish it was more like the other games where you had different spell cards, you had different skills that you learned over the course of the game. I like that a little bit more than this, especially when you have to like save up your different gems that you get over the course of each battle in order to do different attacks. I just don't like the way they incorporated the cards in this game. And it's really the only part of the gameplay that I don't like that much, because I don't think the attacks really matter as much as they probably should, and I think some of the spells are just much better than in the other two games than some of the attack and healing spells in this game. It just doesn't feel as much fun as playing the other two games when it comes down to the battle screens. I think they're pretty cool. I think it was a very good idea to try that, but I just don't think the execution is there. From a visual standpoint, there's nothing that's going to really blow you away in any of the Voice of Cards games. I do like the way the cards look. I think the monsters are still really cool looking, even if they are kind of reused from the previous games. That doesn't bother me too much, because it sort of ties these three games together in some way. It kind of gives me the feeling that each of these are taking place within the same world, just in different parts. And yeah, it's kind of fun to play a game like that. It reminds me of, in some ways, it reminds me of the Final Fantasy series, where you would have some monsters reused, but for the most part, those games were all standalone. That's pretty much the same way it is here with Voice of Cards. The games in the series are all standalone games, but you have some kind of connective things to them that make them feel like they're all taking part in the same world. Aside from that, no, the visuals are not too crazy, but they get the job done. I kind of mentioned these already, but I'll just reiterate them here. The biggest like for me is the story. I think it's really well done. I really am digging the characters in this. I think it's got a nice blend of both humor and seriousness, and it's just really a fun game to kind of play through. And that's really what's been driving me through this, is the story, because I really like that a lot more than, honestly, the way they incorporated some of the stuff in the battles. And that's my biggest dislike in this, is really the way they've incorporated the spells in this. I'm just not really a fan of the beast cards. It doesn't really feel like they should be in this, and they don't feel as strong as they probably should be. I found myself using normal attacks most of the time. The visuals, I think, are pretty good. They get the job done. Everything kind of makes sense, and it all feels like it should be taking place in the same world as the other two games. Those are my biggest likes. I also like that this is a standalone story. It doesn't have to rely on what was built on the previous two games. It's really only taking gameplay elements and visual style and not trying to be a sequel to the other two, which I've really loved about this series. It's been a lot of fun playing this so far, and I'm looking forward to wrapping it up. I really think that the Voice of Cards series is the best thing that Square Enix is doing right now. Each of the games have been a lot of fun to play. I'm still working my way through this one, but I've really been enjoying the story so far. The gameplay might grow on me over time, but right now I'm not really digging it too much. We'll see what happens over the next several hours of gameplay. But at the moment, I think that's the weak point in this game, is really the overall gameplay. The story's been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed this whole fish out of water experience, where you're learning about this world in the same way that your main character is. It's a cool way of doing things. I'm not totally sure how many more of these games are going to be in the Voice of Cards series, but I do hope that at some point we get a physical release where they just put all three of them into the same collection. That would be really great. That way you don't have to just rely on these three digital releases on the Switch. You can get them in some other way and actually have them preserved for longer than what they will be for just the life of the Nintendo Switch. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below, and I will talk to everyone later. Bye.